Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to our Happy Strong Family podcast. Today, we are here with Sister Sadaf Sheikh to talk about seniors and elders, support them like you'd like to be supported. So, just a little bit about Sister Sadaf. She wears many hats professionally. She's an MD, RP, a clinical researcher, a project management professional, an instructor at UFT, professor at George Brown, and a family-oriented female. She's a published author with her medical research publications featured in the most prestigious medical journals. She also conducts mental health workshops which speak about stress management, relationship management, good communication skills, and applied suicide intervention skills training. Sadaf aims to build a stronger community through her compassion to educate and bring awareness to mental health. So I'll hand it over to Sister Sadaf.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the introduction, Muntaha. I think you hit all the dots. So I've got nothing to add, but I'm really happy to hear that this platform exists and it's very popular. So I'm really thrilled to be here.
Awesome, alhamdulillah. And we also have Dr. Rashid here as well as him and I will be co-hosts, inshallah.
Awesome. Lovely. Thank you very much for having me, you guys. It's going to be fun.
Inshallah. So inshallah, we'll start with the first few things about speaking about elderly and the seniors. I know we've already discussed, and this was a topic that we came up together because we thought, what's something that we haven't discussed on this podcast yet? And so I guess we'll start right from the beginning, which is that it's the idea of like offering support to the elderly and seniors. So what would you say is a way that we can support our elders and seniors in our society?
I think the number one thing that I've experienced when I'm speaking to elders in my psychotherapy office is the fact that they feel like they're left out of a lot of things due to the fact that they have mobility issues or they don't have enough energy and things like that. So a lot of the times it's about them being left out because of their inabilities to keep up with their grandchildren or their kids even. And I think that is the number one thing that comes down to me in my office. And it's the fact that they're lonely, right? A lot of the times seniors don't have their partners anymore because they have passed on. And now they're just by themselves and they have nobody to kind of use as a companionship means. And so they're really looking towards the grandkids and their own kids and extended family to kind of, fill in those gaps. But unfortunately, we tend to leave them behind because our pace with life is faster than theirs.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that part of them feeling left out is like where we need to step in and we need to be supportive. So how would you say we can put in that support for someone who feels left out?
Most of the times, I usually advise the individual's family. So we normally have this in a context of a family session where we talk about what the issue is, number one, because sometimes the elderly are not even able to have a conversation that, allows them to voice their opinion. Not all the time, but most of the time, they're not able to get it across a day. I can't do the 2-hour picnic, right? I can only do maybe an hour. So I normally talk to the families and I let them know that, look, as we age, there's a process and everyone's going to go through that process. I'm going to go through it. Muntaha, you're going to go through it. Brother Rashid, you're going to go through it.
I'm going through it.
You're young to me, so alhamdulillah. So the idea is when we get there, we have to be accommodating because we'll get there too. And we want someone to also understand what is happening with them. Because just because we're not there, we can't think it's not going to happen to us. Everyone's going to go through this process. And it's difficult because if you imagine the vigor that we have slowly weans out. And we want to make, for example, if you have grandmoms, they want to cook for you. And they now no longer can because of arthritis, or they can't stand up because their knees are hurting, or they're just pretty slow and they're what we call point proprioception, which is basically the spatial accommodations. They're no longer working as perfectly as they want to, so they're going to have some more accidents in the kitchen. all of these types of things. And so now they're feeling, okay, well, this is constantly happening. They may spill things. Instead of people being supportive, they're being, they're being upset with them. And, why are you in the kitchen when you can't do it? And those words are more harmful than someone just stepping in and saying, you know what, I'll help you clean up. Don't worry about it. So I think that what we need to do is realize that we're also going to go through that pathway. How would we want someone to speak to us if we make a mistake? Or if we are not able to perform, the best of the tasks and the best of the ways? And I think that is the center point I think we have to understand. And a lot of the time, the support just comes from being kind, right? Offering some kind words, offering to help with their tasks sometimes, and making sure that they're okay. Um, and so I think you have to be compassionate is the word that I will really emphasize here. If you're not compassionate, it's gonna be a very difficult ride for the elderlies that are in your home.
Wow, Jazakallah khair. That's a really good point about being compassionate. Dr. Zayhan Rashid, do you want to add anything here?
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So both of you are like my daughters for all practical purposes. I see a big reason behind the lack of, if you like, the proper action is a lack of knowledge. Ilm is missing in a big way from a conversation that's taking place in a paradigm that somebody who does not believe in the worldview that me and you believe in has given us. Meaning, these are accessories, these are people that are just now, without using the word burden, they're there because they are here and they're your parents. But nobody's saying, look, do you remember the Prophet ﷺ? He said, Jannah lies under the feet of your mother. Or have you just not remembered it recently? Did you remember that the Prophet ﷺ said, the person who finds his parents in old age and does not take care of them is deprived of one of the best opportunities, if not the best opportunity, to enter Jannah. I don't think we need to have a huge conversation. I think we need to introduce the solid tradition that we have behind doing anything. It's not just the elderly. The other reason is secular. Let's take it out of the religious paradigm for a minute to say, what have the elderly done? They have probably had long working lives, most of them. And I don't, please think you're both, mashallah, young, intelligent women. I don't look at work as paid work. I look at work as adding value to your life. So, a mother, how do you replace what she has done for her children? The confidence she gave them. My mother is 90, by the way. So, I one day remember taking her outside. We do, alhamdulillah, we pretty much go every day outside when the weather is good. And I had to hold her hand. And I realized in a moment of emotion, this is the hand that probably helped me walk the first time ever. Such a state of emotion came over me for a few minutes that I realized, Allah has given me the honor to take care of her. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she's probably smoothing my way to getting Allah's pleasure. Number two is they took care, like I said, of the young, not just the young person like the son and the daughter, but they took care of maybe a whole generation of young people, the nephews, the nieces, the people that now have the confidence of being upright and probably are capable of doing what they're doing because of that beautiful home that they had when they were little. Thirdly, they have transmitted experience. I would never know about my granddad. One granddad of mine had passed away before I even grew up. I would never learn about him or my grandma. Similarly, they have given me knowledge that I don't think I can get from schools or the uni or the or any other place. It's the confidence of saying you can be a father, you can be a husband. Yes, you should be a son. Yes, you should be these are things, unfortunately, Sadaf and Muntaha, no longer important for the world that we live in. I'm not saying it's not important for us, but I'm saying if we do not divorce ourselves from the entirety of the Western narrative, we're going to fall into some very deep holes and find ourselves really defending things that ought to have been our normal paradigm. I'm sorry if I'm sounding very serious, but I really do see this as something that predicts the vulnerability of our youngsters. Imagine my son seeing me ignoring my father. Imagine my mother being made to feel like she's a spare part. I mean, really, what value am I transmitting to my children? What is really going to be their attitude towards their youngsters as they grow up? So I really think that has to all be brought back into a conversation. And I was very happy. I wasn't really expected to be the host or part of the host of this show, but I'm very glad that I have had the honor of speaking to somebody who cares, mashallah, both of you do, deeply about what has been the forgotten values of the modern society. We've become, as I often say, we have made houses, but we don't really know what homes are. We have relations, but we've forgotten what relationship is. We know love as in confusion with lust. We don't really know the happiness and pleasure paradigm. We're just such a confused nation. I'm not implying that all of us are, but I'm just saying when there is too much light, you forget that the biggest source of light is not always the brightest object in the room. So that's really my three pence to it, to say we need to go back to our original, and we should not be shy about not defending, about stating our position with a smile, without looking as if we know and others are ignorant. We need to just reinstate the truth as it should be seen.
Exactly, subhanallah. That's the topic of honor that you brought up. I feel like that's really important, and we miss out on the fact that it's such a huge concept in Islam as well, to honor your parents, to honor your elders, because really, like your story about your mother and like holding her hand, that was really beautiful. It's like, subhanallah, we're all gonna be there one day. We're all gonna need our hand to be held one day as well.
One small
Sister,
part that I also feel, before Sister Sadaf comes back, is to expect people that are being paid to do what was my job all along. You know, this idea of outsourcing, this has gone way too far. This has really taken a turn in the last 20 years. Like you could, and I, but you two are both young, but I could not have imagined it in my 30s that somebody would be outsourcing the care of the one that took care of every need of theirs, that basically devoted her life to the well being of her son or her daughter. Now to be treated as if it's really somebody that is best not here. I really don't understand. Again, I'll share another experience with you because I think practicality brings reality to the conversation. My mother had a fractured hip again 2 years ago during the peak of COVID. We ended up going to the hospital, etc. But I noticed that in the hospital is some of the, if you like, the worst demonstrations of human, what can I say? It's not character, behavior. You see people that ought to be treated as honored, as dignified, as people who have done their part, as being people that are being really relegated to the fringes of the society. And even their own family seems to not have time to attend to their needs when they are most vulnerable. It's just such a stark demonstration of what really people talk as human rights. And I often think to myself, are these not humans anymore? Or are these just not, if you like, offering material advantages? This is what the world has become. If you don't have a material advantage, it's a visible, tangible advantage, but then it can't be much, really, can it? So we therefore see material advantage as way more valuable than non-material. And yet happiness, love, contentment, the ability to be satisfied, what has this got to do with material? I mean, the secular world has understood that gratefulness is the key to happiness. Where does gratefulness come from except to appreciate what Allah has given you and me as a free gift? Allah Ta'ala hasn't charged you anything to have an older mother or a father or a beautiful husband and a nice wife. Nothing is being charged. It just requires us to open our eyes, dust the table, and look at what's really underneath it. So I hope that's given you my perspective.
I want to kind of take your point that you just made about outsourcing. Just remember, I think there are a lot of things that decrease the quality of care when you outsource. But what the message comes out to is, I don't care for my parents if that is the outsourcing that we're doing. They're old. I can't take care of them. Someone else can take care of them. And when that thought process is kind of pushed into the conversations, what are we expecting? the expectation isn't that these people are going to take care of them, because we don't care, they're not going to care. So it starts with us, the bloodline, or the people whose parents these parents are. We have to develop that code of care. And yes, if we need to put them into um, into the hospital and these types of things, there needs to be care, not just handing off. You're not handing off, you're not doing a warm transfer, you're really still attached and you're still part of their care. The people that are treated the worst, which is I've worked in nursing homes, going in and visiting patients, and they're very unhappy because they haven't seen their family members. They haven't had, themselves in terms of their hygiene taken care of by the individuals that are supposed to be taking care of them. But really, whose responsibility is all that? You're outsourcing, but does that take that onus away from you to be participating in that care? And I think that what we put out there is what we receive. So if we put out there that we don't care for this individual because they're old, we're passing off care, no one else in this world around that person will do the caring for you. So sometimes when I talk to people and we talk about the fabric of our families and how they are structured, I normally talk to them about, do a hierarchy. If you're really messed up, start from the top. The top is your parents, then it's you, then it's your kids. And when you maintain that hierarchy, it really allows everyone to understand there's a one flow thing, right? This is how the how do you say, decision making occurs, and that straight line really helps define what our tasks look like. Because a confusion in who do I listen to? Do I listen to mom, or should I listen to grandma? Right? Or should I listen to what dad is saying? Or should I listen to grandpa? Right? The message shouldn't be different between the grandparents and the parents, which means when they differ, that's where communication has to take has to take a role. It has to come in and say, okay, listen, this is where there's a disparity. How can we minimize it so that the kids are getting one message, right? And I think that communication is no longer happening because we're so busy, right? We're going to work, we're coming back, we're getting our hustling for our dinners and all this kind of stuff, making sure that sometimes the kids are getting their homework done and everybody's okay. And now it's time to sleep and we start the whole circuits again the next day. But what we have sort of not appreciated anymore is there's more to that circus. And I think, Brother Rashid, you were talking about that, what we have relations, but we don't know what a relationship is. We're just coexisting, which is great, but not enough. And that goes for the kids, that goes for the parents, that goes for the grandparents, right? It's not enough to coexist. We need that compassion, we need that care, we need that connection. More so, we need the companionship of our kids as we get older, and they're going to need it too when they get older. So it's a domino effect.
Yeah, I think that especially the concept of, like, I feel like sometimes we think of caring for someone, it's not coexisting, it's actually being present. So that presence, providing them that present, it's the most beautiful thing you can give to someone, is actually saying, okay, well, I'm here for you. And it's not like, I feel like sometimes we think of it in extreme, like as we're discussing and you were talking about taking care and like the hierarchy, I was thinking of someone who's like in super need, like an elder who really needs a lot of support. But sometimes there's elders who don't actually need the physical support, it's actually like more emotional, so they just want to like discuss something with someone or talk to them. And then you're thinking that, oh, this person doesn't need anything from me. It actually reduces, because it's like the care is actually in an emotional way, right? The care might not be physical, but it's in an emotional way. So I feel like that's interesting too, where we can look at it in many different platforms. Like you can care in so many different ways for someone, and it's important to like realize that. And you can only realize that when you're present with them. If you're just thinking, oh, I just like exist in the same area and they look fine, they're just sitting there, they're doing their own thing, then you're not actually going to be able to give that care in an appropriate way, I think.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the elders just want to impart knowledge. They want to tell you what their experience looks like. They'll give you a whole rundown of what all the things there are that they have done in their life. And they want to, make that connection, right? They want to feel valuable. And so when they're not able to share that connection and they're not able to do other things to what we say valuable and create that, value in other people's lives for them, that's where the frustration happens. And I really feel that, it's so important for grandparents to keep connected with their grandkids, right? There's a saying in our culture that, as individuals get older and they get to an elderly state, again, it's elderly state is very different for different people. But once they reach that stage where they're grandparents and they're elderly, they become synonymous to children. So, what's the best way to unite these individuals, the kids and the grandparents, is to give them time with each other. Let them feed off of the energy that each other has, right? And you'll see how the kids will resonate with that, and you'll see how the elderly will appreciate you because they've got a happy place for them. So highly, encourage individuals who are looking to volunteer, go to these elder homes or the nursing homes and go and read to them, go talk to them, say hello to them, because you will be surprised at how amazing of an experience we'll have in that day just because someone came to visit and spend some time with them.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think this was actually one of the questions we got as well online, which was about how to balance elderly parents with the responsibility of someone's family. So you said that perfectly, which is to actually engage them and make them part of the family even. But yeah, someone also spoke about their guilt that they can't do more for their parents. So what advice would you give to someone who's balancing this feeling of not being able to do enough and then separating that elderly parents with their family?
To be honest with you, life is very, very busy for everybody, right? And when we feel guilty, that means that we know we need to be doing something better, right? And we're not doing it. So when the guilt comes through, we want to address where that guilt is coming from. Is it out of necessity? Is it because someone has told us, or is it within us? If it's within us, we will do something about it. If it's told to us, it'll pass, right? And it's a hard pill to swallow, but it'll go away to a certain degree. But if the guilt is coming from within and you're wanting to do something for your parents, then just, if you don't live with them, give them a call and do a check-in every day to see how they're going, how they're doing, how their day is going. If you live with them, take some time out and share a meal. One meal in the day can make it happen, right? Somehow or another, we can do that. And that comes with scheduling, right? It's nice to have a schedule for here's the dinner time. Again, be flex with it. I normally say between 6:30 to 7:30, we're having dinner. Now everybody knows we get ready. That hour is sort of scheduled in for dinner time. It's hard to kind of say it's a robotic experience, but that enables us because we work with schedules. If we're working outside, even if we're working in the home, we're around someone's schedule, right? So the idea is very simple. Put a schedule down for at least one meal a day where you all eat together. Weekends are a great opportunity to pay your elderly a visit. Take the entire family and go. And that makes it a priority. Go in the morning, go in the afternoon, somewhere in the day. Just go and visit them. Spend an hour or so with them. Make sure that they're doing okay. Take them out, to the park and have them, be in the fresh air and with the people that they love. We can make time. We just have to want to make time. So I think that's what it comes down to. What's the source of guilt? If someone else is kind of making you guilty, you're not going to perform to, eliminate that guilt. But if it's you thinking, okay, yeah, I should be doing something, then my thought is you can. And sometimes it's just as easy as tweaking and saying, we're going to have one meal with my parents. We're going to go once a week to go see and spend a few hours with my parents. And we're going to take the kids with us, right? It is very, very simple, minute things that we can do and enhance everybody's life, right? The quality of life increases for the elderly. They will increase for your children, and they'll increase for you because, yeah, you have a responsibility. It doesn't end because, you've grown up. It doesn't end. That responsibility actually begins towards your parents as they age. So we shouldn't forget that.
Dr. Sheikh, do you want to give us?
So, listening to what Sister Sadaf is saying, I've also, because I have first-hand experience of my mother, I noticed that she forgets. And I also noticed that there is sometimes what can only be described as a childlike behavior. But in that, there's always the aspect of fun, which you can see as saying, it's not as if she has control of what she's doing. She doesn't have a planned script in the back of her head and that she's doing it. What if Allah has decided that He will give you this test in your life to clean up all the past garbage that I have in my own life, which I have not sought His forgiveness for? I mean, you can look at it from always that half full, half empty glass perspective. And I think each of us in our own lives, based on our experiences, based on our knowledge, based on our company, will decide what attitude to take about a certain situation. I think parenting is and being parented are probably two things that nobody is prepared for in any university or any teaching institution. So I think to take this as an experience which is bogging me down from what is my real purpose in life, and I'm not going to go into that details, because whenever I have a chance to speak with people and I ask them, and what is that purpose? Are you meaning that you are no longer making money for the money making machine that we all have become? Or this, like Sister Sadaf said and Sister Muntaha also, that we are just running in, it's literally like we're chasing our tail all the time. Why have I made my life so difficult? This mother is the one, and I'll share with you too, I'm sure you already know the story. One Sahabi is not a Sahabi, his name is Uwais Qarni. Now this is somebody who accepted Islam while the Prophet Muhammad was alive, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the deal was, when you saw the Prophet ﷺ, if you accepted Islam, you became a Sahabi. And a Sahabi, a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, is one of the best statuses God can grant you. This man, however, at the behest of the Prophet Muhammad, did not come and visit the Prophet ﷺ because he had an elderly mother to look after. Now, I take such a powerful lesson from this to say, here is somebody who had every reason to want to come and visit Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every reason to want to be amongst those special people that Allah has praised in the book of Quran Himself. And yet, what does he do? At the behest of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he postpones that idea, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Your mother is elderly and needs you." But look at, my sisters, what happens as a result of this acceptance of what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has asked him. At the time of his leaving this world, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Umar, one of the second great Sahabi, who also became a second caliph, he said, if Uwais Qarni visits this town, make sure you ask him to make dua for you. Make sure that he asks for your forgiveness or whatever it is that you're looking for from God, because his dua is accepted because of this act of great charity that he has done. So I would only say that we need to really look at this in the big picture. We really need to go beyond the Western paradigm. I'm saying this again and again because I think we are too impressed by what is being thrown at us without any analysis of what it is that we're doing. We were not meant to abandon our parents or our children for that matter. I know we're not talking about children today, but when I talk about the family, I say senior homes and baby centers are just two ways of outsourcing what are the two greatest opportunities to reach really the best of your humanity. It's not even, I don't even call it religiosity. It's humanity, to take care of other people that have been given in your charge. Elderly parents, without wanting to, have been found themselves that they are no longer capable of looking after themselves. But I personally see it as a cleansing of my own past life that I have an opportunity. The other thing, and Sister Sadaf, I'm sure already knows it, I was looking at the statistics yesterday. 9,500 people over the age of 100 are alive at this time, which I found was a big number. And then I also found that by 2050, in about 20 years, 30 years, this number will treble and it will go almost to 25,000. And of course, some of them will be Muslim. And so I think we really, as a community, need to waken up to the reality that it's not just the fact that this is rewarding and it is something that will be pleasant in the next life. This is us paying our debt to the society that we've chosen to adopt as our second home. I mean, I came here as a, I dare say, youngish man. Instead of blaming what's going on around me, with perspective, I realize it's an opportunity really to show people that have forgotten what life should really look like. Why there is an importance to the whole society adopting this caregiving attitude towards the elderly, towards the children, towards people around us. Really, that's what it is, a caring society, as opposed to a society that's just unwilling to fulfill its duties. I'm sorry, I'm sounding like I'm making a speech, but this is really how I see it. I think we have to take our narrative back, and I think we have to contribute to the society.
SubhanAllah. It's the fact that like when it comes to even the difference I think in like our society here versus what our religious values are, we can think of Islam as like guiding us as like with a purpose, you know? And I remember that I was actually reading this piece by Jay Shetty about like putting meaning and purpose in your life, and that and doing dishes. And I feel like I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast before, but I know I've said it a lot of times to like friends and family that I always had a problem with dishes because I'm like, why do I have to do it when I have this degree and I can do this? And I felt like above the dishes, but then I realized that's like an ego problem, because when you think you're above an act of service, it's because you don't realize how meaningful it is to do something like dishes. And since then, that's changed my life, alhamdulillah. And you can even think about it in this context where it's like, why do we think we're above taking care of other people? That's actually a purpose and meaning for us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. And our purpose is to worship Him and to be good to the people around us as well. So I feel like it's like a one streamline, you know, with doing goodness in all those ways.
I love Muntaha, that you said, we've got all these degrees and then we think we're, so invincible and we don't have to do certain things, and a lot of our responsibilities should be, given over to, again, outsourced to somebody else. I think what our degrees should teach us is how to manage life. It's not just the work, it's how do you manage, like, for example, when you go into a university degree, or you go to a master's degree, you'll realize that you're doing everything and studying and passing all these grades and handing in your assignments because you've learned the art of time management. This is no different. You still have to do all your tasks. Just because we've got, a higher degree and all this stuff, it doesn't, give us that, certification to kind of withdraw and say someone else can do it because this is below me. So I think that the ego should be checked every once in a while, because we have to be, humble, because our beginnings are humble. We started from nothing and now we're becoming something, but there's value in becoming something. That doesn't mean you leave your responsibilities because they're not convenient anymore. We need to learn to balance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum, it's Kashif here. So I'm going to interrupt because there's some questions that have been coming in.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead. There's a few of them, a handful of them. So I think we already asked one that had come in through Instagram about how to balance the elderly parents' responsibilities of today. Another one that came in, Sister Sadaf, let me just play it on the screen here, is, so the audience member was asking, what are signs of depressions in seniors?
Okay, so a lot of times they're not very different from what we normally say, this is what to look out for, right? So you'll have a mood change, right? It could be irritability, but it could also be, sadness, right? So those are types of things that we want to look into. Losing pleasure and activities that you once liked, right? So if they really loved sitting outside and really taking it in, and now that has removed from their repertoire of the day, we want to kind of ask what's going on. Significant weight loss and gain also, we want to keep an eye out for, because as individuals, it doesn't matter if you're an elderly and or a young person. These signs are the same. When we get sad or when we get depressed, which is again a diagnosis, when we are in that frame, we either don't eat enough because we're so sad, or we eat a lot because we're so sad. So those are, again, things to kind of worry about. As we age, individuals will realize that their weights will fluctuate, but any kind of change that you've noticed should be addressed. Things along the lines of sleeping too much. As we know, the elders get, into, as we age, let me just put it that way, as we age, the sleep cycle reduces for the elders. So they don't sleep as much. But if they're sleeping too much, we should kind of look into it. However, the reverse is also true. If you're not sleeping enough, right? And again, have your physician also in on all of these changes, because it's important to put everything into perspective. And the history, the medical history, really makes a difference in seeing what's happening with the individual. But sleeping too little, sleeping too much, feeling tired all the time. And again, elders do get tired, right? Because they're aging. But at the same time, we want to keep check on any differences that we notice. Feelings of worthlessness, words that they're using, you have to be very vigilant for. So if they're saying, I am a burden, or I can't do anything, I can't do anything for my family, I can't even, go to the bathroom unassisted, right? We need to use those statements and talk about them, because they're telling you something. It's a cry for help, right? So be attentive to what they're saying, because it's not just the physical signs, it's sometimes the verbal signs that they're giving you. And we tend to say, hey, don't say like that. You'll see elders saying, I wish I was dead, because this is too much and I'm a burden on you. Now there's a conversation we need to have, right? Which is urgent. A lot of times we say, don't talk like that. That's rubbish. How can you say things like that? But they just need to have a conversation. And I urge that when people are saying things that are out of frustration and things like that, let's talk about it. What do you mean by that? Why are you saying this? How can we help you? And all of those compassionate terms of, being supportive, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's verbally, they go a long way. Okay. Just sitting with them and holding their hand and saying, we're here, goes a long way. So please make sure that you're caring holistically as best as you can, for your elders as they age.
Jazakallah khair. So the next question we had here was, I want to help my parents, but they are toxic. They degrade, disrespect me in front of my husband and kids. The word toxic here, very, I think this is the difference between when it comes to like faith-based counseling and Western counseling is, here we're taught cut toxic. If it's toxic, cut it out of your life, like get it out of your life, right? But our religion teaches us something very different, right? The rights our parents have upon us. But, these are realities that I've noticed, especially with, the generation before us that immigrated here, like the traumas that they've been through, we cannot understand. We have no idea. We're not built for that. Like their life experiences, and maybe some of those things come out in negative ways. So I know, that this question, or I feel sort of, I feel this pain. A lot of people would have this, where the parents are maybe, not saying the right things, not saying. So how does one deal with that when it comes to their parents, their elders in general?
I'll be very honest with you. I believe in the hierarchy, number one. And number two, if there is this situation where there's degrading and disrespecting, we need to kind of know what that looks like. So, to some people, it would look like, I've said something, but I have been trumped by the grandparents, right? Or I've said something and I've been trumped because of my husband's parents, right? These are all sort of in lane within the culture. It's just passing down the trauma. So trauma that the women have in their life, as when they were just newly married and they had some situations going on with them in their joint families. They've kind of just understood that that's how that's how it is, right? So that is norm. But we can also have a conversation, right, and talk about, okay, let's go into understanding why am I being trumped, right? Have a conversation with, and I think this is from a sister. So have a conversation with your parents and say, okay, why are we going through this challenge, and understand what it is. Maybe they have felt that they have been degraded and disrespected, and now they're like, well, if I have to uphold myself, and if I have to vouch for myself, and if I have to defend myself, then I'm going to also do the same. There's a lot of thoughts here, right? But I think it's important to understand what degrading looks like for somebody, and what does disrespect look like. That this individual is feeling. A lot of the times, there's a power struggle. between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, and I think I'm not sure if this is a situation here, but again, navigate. So you need a family session to kind of just sit down just amongst yourselves and say, hey, how do we make this better? Because we don't want the constant arguments, we don't want the constant disrespect floating around, because what are we what are we offloading to the kids? This is acceptable, right? And it's not acceptable in any way, in any shape. So I know toxic gets thrown out a lot around, but the idea is we can fix things, and moments are difficult, but we need to understand what the root cause is. Once we understand the root cause of where is the degradation coming through, where is the disrespect coming through, then we can address it. And again, you want to set a good example for the kids. If they don't see the hierarchy working, they're not going to follow it, right? So I'll give an example. When, let's say, the mom and dad have said, no, you cannot have chocolate at this time, and the kid goes to their grandparent and said, hey, I want chocolate, and they said, go ahead, have a chocolate, life's too short, sort of idea, right? It's okay to let that child go ahead and have that chocolate. Why? Because we're managing the hierarchy and we're making things very stratified for them. But then have a conversation with your parents and say, you know what, I know you love them, but can we really just make sure that they don't have chocolate in this to this hour, because it really charges them up, and I don't think it's healthy for them to have it right before bed. Have that conversation, right? And hope to see if there is something that you guys can do to, find a solution. And usually the solutions are very simple, but we have to initiate the conversation.
Yes, just like here. So one thing you said there was about, so sometimes some of these things it might be worth exploring in a family session and so forth. Oftentimes, there's a lot of shame in doing that. So we on this show we're always trying to say, there's no shame in seeking help when that help is alhamdulillah readily available. It can only make things better. A lot of this will be covered by people's private insurances also. So we always remind folks of that. With that in mind, like, are you accepting clients right now? And if so, how can folks reach you?
Yes, so I am accepting clients. You can feel free to look me up at yourlifetimecounseling.com. I've got a website there, and it allows you to get in touch with me. I usually start with a 15-minute consult book, which is a free 15 minutes of me having an understanding of what's going on, and then we kind of very easily go ahead and book you in. And I'm loving the fact that you brought this up, brother, because yes, a lot of there's a stigma to receiving help, but I want to say that, and our prophet also seeked counsel in a lot of his dealings and in a lot of his decision making. What makes us above that is my question. If you can get some insight and you can get some guidance, you can get some coping mechanisms, you can get some assistance in how to do something better, I don't think that we're above that. And number two, the great thing is, and the reason that I came into psychotherapy is a lot of Muslims need assistance. And they approached me because they see me as a Muslim, and I appreciate that, right? But at the same time, there's a void because we don't get that support when someone wants to reach out and get some assistance, right? So I think there's a change that's happening, but it's happening slow. We should be acceptable of the fact that we should get assistance because it's there. And to be honest with you, my whole scope is to empower and then allow you to deal with your dealings based on what you've learned. So there's nothing wrong with seeking assistance. Psychotherapy is allowing us to understand and channel things that we're not able to focus on or we're clouded about. And it gives you, again, a moment to internally reflect and use the coping mechanisms and or skill set that we can develop or we can highlight. A lot of good things come out of therapy. So I know there's a negative connotation to it, but I think we need to step above that and say, you know what, if I need to get some assistance to do things better, why not?
Jazakallah khair. So we have the information on the screen also. So that was www.yourlifetimecounseling.com. So yeah, there's a few more questions here. So a few of them came in live during the stream. So let me get to those, inshallah. Um, So this questioner that came in live during is asking, my dad, as he's gotten older, has no filter. He can be very rude to people. I get very anxious when he's around people. I can't change him, but how can I deal with my anxiety or address this issue with others?
Yeah, that's tough. What we have to realize is the pen's lifted for our parents that are old, right? So yeah, we may not be able to change their ways because they're being honest and truthful in whatever they're feeling. How do you deal with the anxiety or address this with others? I think it's a good question. The anxiety needs to be dealt with. What are you anxious about? Right? Are you anxious that your dealings with people are going to go south? Are you anxious because there's going to be a fight that's on the horizon? Are you anxious that um, you know the reasoning needs to be clear, right? And then we deal with the anxiety. There's a way to actually channel those nervous feelings and those butterflies or the palpitations in a nice physiological way too. But at the same time, we need to understand again what the root cause is. What are you anxious about, right? And then when you are addressing it, you have to also realize you can't address it with everybody, but you know what? Eventually, people pick it up, you right, and they kind of say, okay, this is just how this person is. But it's just to defend and say, you know what? The pen's lifted for this person, so can't do anything about it. But yeah, the person's a good person, and we have to kind of look into that a little bit more. You cannot change um, elderly thought processes, but also if they have no filter and they're saying whatever they want to say, maybe have a conversation with them and say, why do you say these things? And they'll give you their view, right? They'll give you, hey, we've always been talked like this, now it's my turn, right? And I want to say whatever I want to say because that's how I feel. So have those conversations. You're liberating them, you're allowing them to vent, you're allowing them to de-escalate, and then it's okay. I think we're also powered so much by our perception or how we're perceived that we also lose that battle, right? When we have to defend our kin, right? We don't have to defend our kin sometimes. We just kind of have to let it be. And we say, this is okay with us because this is how they are. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's okay too. But the good thing is, we want to have that conversation on multiple levels, right? So, first with yourself, why are you anxious? Let's talk about that. Number two, why how would you like to address this with people? Like, what is it that it's very core? Is it the fact that there are people that you work with? Are there other extended family that needs to, be addressed in terms of, the actions of your parent? And lastly, ask your parent. You say these things, and I want to know why, and have a conversation, not a, you know, you're on the stand, dad or mom, and now you have to tell me. It's a conversation. So, you do this, and last time you did this, tell me why you do it, and let them tell you. Sometimes they just need to talk to somebody, and this is an attention seeking mechanism. So, if we give that to them and we understand what that looks like, we can help them as well. So, I hope that helps you.
Jazakallah
I'm
khair
going
for
to
the
say,
answer.
I
Oh,
was going to
sorry, go
say,
ahead,
Sister
Dr. Rashid.
Sadaf, one of the things I found very useful is to hug my mom, is to just sit next to her and hug her, even kiss her forehead. It may sound very unconventional, but touch is a very powerful mechanism to undo some of the hormones that bring about really almost like an aggressive attitude. There's no question that there are people who are suffering from cognitive decline. Their ability to appreciate what they've just done is not there. And I think the less we realize that our parents are not an older version of their self when they're in their 40s and 30s, they've actually significantly declined, which means the brain has failed and the body is still functioning. So I think to completely exclude this as a possibility would in some ways to me indicate that we probably don't have very useful conversations in our home and with the people that we mix with most, because what in the end is the purpose of these interactions? It is to increase everybody's ability to cope with life better. So if that's not happening, then what psychotherapist will come and fix that for me? I think we have to come out of this paradigm that there's a pill for every ill. I think we have to accept that there are things that we have to do as responsible members of the society, and also accept that our deen is not result based. Our deen is effort based. As Allah Ta'ala says, Innama amruhu iza arada shay'an an yaqula lahu kun fayakun. Allah Ta'ala has no difficulty creating the result. None, zero. But He wants to see what effort are you willing to put in. So I think that last statement that you made, that don't be shy of people saying things about you, because at the end, why are you worried about what people have to say anyway? Is there some insecurity that you have with your own self? Because let's then not put it on our parent to say, oh, she says this or he says this. Maybe there is a deeper issue which you have not addressed. I'm sorry if I interrupted. I just wanted to give that perspective of mine.
No, just Jazakallah khair. And it's actually what you said there, that our religion is effort based, not result based. It's a nice segue into a question that just came in from a live audience member. So they're asking, how do we know that our efforts are fulfilling all the needs of our elderly parents? So how do we know that? So Sister Sadaf, maybe I'll ask you to answer that.
That's a loaded question right
Mhm.
there. I don't think I can answer that. I'll be very honest with you. I think you have to know what needs are there for your parents, right? Like, for example, we've been kind of talking about communication. We've talked about giving them time, spending time with them. Um, they don't have very much of an ask, because they're elder. It's like what we say in medicine is, we come and we do our thing for a person who has a cold, a female who comes into the office and they have a cold, and we kind of address that cold and we're like, do da 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 da. But then a pregnant female comes in with a cold, and we're all kind of wild about it, right? Oh my God, it's a new beast. It's not. It's the same situation. You handle it the same way. So the idea is the same. Just because they're elderly, their needs may change, but they're not going to be a different beast, right? They still need someone to take care of them, make sure that they have had um, you know um, food and water, and they've bathed, and their needs are the same. So just because they're older, they may need some assistance in doing this, but they're not a different person or beast, and or different situation altogether that we have to now relearn. We just have to be compassionate and give some time to understand what we're going to need to do. So the basics are there. We're not reinventing. We're just being human.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, we got a few more questions actually that have come in, and I know we're also approaching the time, so we'll just have to be mindful of that as we answer. We also have Sister Sadaf's website on the screen if you want to contact her for any further details, because a lot of these, as you said, they're loaded questions that can't just be answered on a podcast. But one of the questions here was saying, so first they sent a comment saying, Alhamdulillah, very important discussion. Many thanks to Sister Sadaf, Sister Minta, and Dr. Zahan Rashid to conduct this invaluable podcast. So thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. So the question that they asked was, how can a son or daughter living in a different country ensure proper care to their elderly parents? So I know a lot of our audience members would be in that situation. You listed some of the things about spending time with them, calling them and stuff, but anything specific when parents are in a different country?
I think the anxiety is something that becomes very prominent when you're away from your family members, and when your son or daughter is living in a different place and your elder parents are living in a different place. There's a sense of anxiety because you don't know what's going to happen, and there's a sense of doom. Like, what if my parent dies and I'm in a different place, right? So a lot of that anxiety is built because of the distance. Sometimes we can't do anything about the distance, but what we can do is make sure that wherever they are, they've got loving people around them. So do not put them into a space where they don't know many people. If they're back home, usually there's community there, which are very tight, and they all take care of each other. So if you understand that their needs are such that they need someone to talk to, they need companionship, all these types of things, please make sure that that is in place for them. And again, speaking to them on a as frequently as you can is awesome. Also, I want to kind of quickly put this in there. I know we're out of time, but for the individuals that have the elders who've lost a spouse, okay, because they've passed away, you know, I would like to kind of throw this out there. These individuals need companionship. So please don't forgo the idea of allowing them to get into a matrimonial situation, right? Because they need someone their age, their background in terms of their age and their demo to kind of understand and live the rest of their life in a meaningful way. So I'm having to deal with that. And the hesitance from the individuals that are widowed is very high. And it's very sad because they're lonely and there's nothing filling that gap. So if they are by themselves and you're far away, if you have both parents, great, because they're a good companion for each other. But if they're single because of ABCD reasons, please don't hesitate getting them a companion. It's their right to enjoy life, all that they have, right?
You know,
And
that's a very good point. Jazakallah khair for that. You know, I'm at the age now. My mom recently passed away, and me and my sisters actually have this discussion also. Like, and it's you know, a lot of my friends, one of their parents have passed away, and at the end, it's very selfish of us because we're thinking someone's replacing our mother or replacing our father, but that's not the perspective, right? We have to be looking at our parent and, like you're saying, the companionship that they need. It's not about us at that point at all, but
Mhm.
you know, we just can't imagine someone else being in that role that, you know, one of our parents filled for a lifetime. But it's so we just got to get over that, though. It's more about the parents.
Just remembering the statistical evidence that there will be two women every man after the age of 85. That's just how stats are. So we will not be able to ignore the ground reality. Just one more point about living in a different country. I think most of us, and I'm one of them, when we moved to another location, I don't think taking care of our elderly parents was a very high priority. It was the economic prosperity that was really overtaking the situation at the time. And a lot of us, as we've grown older, we've realized we made some choices that are now coming by very hard to bite us. I think we have to, like Sister Sadaf said, this is a whole different conversation. It really has to take place, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Jazakallah khair. So I'm just gonna go rapid fire to get through these questions. There's just two more. So unfortunately, if anyone's going to ask any more, we won't be able to get to them now. But like Sister Sadaf's contact is on the screen, and obviously a Happy Strong Family, Dr. Rashid, you know how to contact us also. So the question that came in, and again, it's a loaded question without details. I'm not sure, but how does one go about the increased in fights between their parents as they reach older age? And I think what I'll say here is maybe as parents get older, they sort of lose their patience, right? And they're you know, they get annoyed more easily and stuff. So maybe that's what's at the root at that. But how to deal with some of those situations as they come up.
really, again, look at what the fights look like. Sometimes it's just banter and they're just venting, right? And so let them vent, it's okay. But if it's coming to a point where it is, affecting the other spouse, sometimes it's like, the female or the male is going to say blah 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 blah, and then it's just done, and then things go back to normal. But if we're having fights that are increasing in frequency, you want to figure out what that looks like, because something and or someone has been wronged and they're trying to make it right. And the way that they're making it right is by defending themselves a little bit more in everything so that they hold ground. Again, it's about viability of themselves. It's about value of themselves. It's about instilling in the people around, I exist and you can't walk all over me, right? So you got to figure out what the reasons of the increase in fights look like. And then when you do that, you'll be able to manage it better. But if it's like love banter, let it be, because when you're old and you're with your partner and you've been there for them with them for so long, sometimes it's just natural for them to progress this way. Because yes, irritability. Yes, I cannot get you a glass of water anymore because I'm also old. Get it yourself, right? So these are the types of things. If that's the banter we're looking at, let it happen. Let's talk about it. Be the person who comes in and gives the water to whoever is asking, and kind of, cut that short. But if it's more than that, we need to address, maybe it is an ingrained situation for the person who's, fighting more. They just want to be seen. They want the attention. They want to be recognized as a human being, right? Don't pass me over because I'm old.
Perfect. Jazakallah khair. And then the last question here. So maybe Sister Sadaf, if you can answer, then we'll get Dr. Rashid to for his perspective. I find this a very interesting question, actually. It's sort of changing the perspective and shifting it how we're looking at things a bit. but it's saying that the reality is that the next generation will be lonelier when we are seniors, as we lose more and more of our culture. We are in our 40s. How can we start preparing for our less social old age now? It's a very interesting question. Like, how can like people start preparing for their elderhood, for their seniorhood, as they're going through their lives now, so things are easier for them at that point.
Okay, I'll make it very brief. Hierarchy is everything. If you instill in your family's fabric a hierarchy of and respect of the elders, that's what you're going to receive. So when you are lonely, it's because there is no pathway you've given your kids to follow that enables them to have values put in place. Our culture is very rich, which means we value our elders and we should be valuing that. But when our kids see that we are disrespecting our elders, not listening to them because now they're old, the kids will behave in the same fashion towards you when you get older. So if you're aware, like this is I think one of the key points here, what we want to do for our seniors and our elders should be the same that we would like for to happen to us when we get older, right? So instill in your children the value of that elder and the value that they have in your lives and in their lives, and they will pick that up and they will run with it. I'll give you a quick example. I normally, when we're out, if my mom or my mother-in-law needs a hat and they don't have one, I normally give mine off and give it to them. And you'll realize that you do this once, you do this twice. And then my daughter came in, and once I took my hat off and gave it to my elder, she gave me her hat. So it's something that is sincerely contagious. Kids pick up everything. So you have to be the example.
One very last thing that I'd like to add, I think, again, as in the oldest person on this podcast, is do not always look for results in your life. You may not see them. Surah Kahf, which is the 18th chapter of the Quran we all read on a Friday, actually indicates the care that Allah provided through Musa and Khidr to two orphan children whose parent has long since passed. And one starts to see the value, as I think Sister Muntaha mentioned right at the beginning, the long-term results of what you may not see the results of. Many of our salaf, of our past generations, did not look for immediacy. This concept is very new, that if I don't get 40,000 Facebook likes, I'm a useless individual. This is something that is really 10 years old, if that. We used to see, when I was a young man, young boy, we saw the whole society as we were a part of it. This concept that you had one parent did not exist. Your neighbors were your uncles. They were not your uncles by relationship. They were your neighbors by the relation, by relation, sorry. They were your uncles by relationship. I think if we can get this perspective back, and I don't believe this is going to come from the university and college education. I think it's going to come for conversation. I think it's going to come by reviving and revising the rich tradition that we have in the form of Islam. It will come from the studying of the lives of the great human beings. It will come from talking about the ultimate purpose of life. I think these conversations have to take place not out of perspective, but in those perspectives. Those people who've talked about toxic parents or parents that are difficult, I would only say Allah wants to give you a higher position. That's why you got tougher tests. Be happy. You would never say no to $1 million. Why you say no to Jannah?
Subhanallah, Jazakallah khair. So that's it for the questions. So maybe Muntaha, I'll pass it back to you to sort of wrap us up.
Yes, for sure. Jazakallah khair, Sister Sadaf. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast and just going through what it means to support elderly as we would want to be supported. I think we really were able to wrap that up. If there's just like one line that you could leave with our audience members, I know, Mashallah, we had a lot of discussion, a lot of questions. What would that be about supporting the elderly?
If you want to see the change, be the change.
That is beautiful. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Rashid, for co-hosting today. And inshallah, we are going to see you guys on the next podcast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sister Sadaf, very, very intelligent, mashallah. Very, very useful conversation. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. I'm learning, still learning. But thank you so much for your contributions. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on here. Thanks.